Welcome to Belmont Poetry Night. I'm Monica Korde, your host and the Poet Laureate of Belmont, California. We meet on the third Tuesdays of every month to celebrate the spoken word as makers, listeners, and admirers of poetry. We come with featured guests and an open mic, inviting readers of all ages. After gathering for several years at our favorite physical venue, the Belmont Library, since the pandemic, our thriving poetry circle has transitioned to this virtual space, and I'm grateful this allows me to welcome poets and listeners from across the globe. It's wonderful to see all of you here. Thank you always for being here and supporting each other. The season is slowly changing, but I'm glad that this one thing remains constant. And as per our poetry night tradition, I'd love to know where you are joining me from. So please feel free to share in the chat. And thank you all for being here and zooming in. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all for our poetry night in recognition of Latinx Heritage Month. As we've done since past 2 years, this September evening is once again all about coming together to celebrate the rich and diverse voices that make up the Latinx community. And tonight, we celebrate community, not just as a gathering of people, but as a bond that we share through culture, through heritage, and a common sense of belonging. These were the thoughts that drove me to curate this poetry night in the theme Celebrando Comunidad. And to begin our evening, I have a poem that truly embodies the essence of community and resilience. And there couldn't be a more fitting choice than a piece by the remarkable Puerto Rican American poet Martin Espada. It's a longer poem, and I'll do my best to honor it as I read. And an epigraph follows the poem title. This is how it goes. Alabanza in Praise of Local 100 by Martin Espada. For the 43 members of hotel employees and restaurant employees, Local 100, working at the Windows on the World restaurant, who lost their lives in the attack on the World Trade Center. Alabanza. Praise the cook with a shaven head and a tattoo on his shoulder that said, Oi, a blue-eyed Puerto Rican with people from Fajardo, the harbor of pirates centuries ago. Praise the lighthouse in Fajardo, candle glimmering white to worship the dark saint of the sea. Alabanza, praise the cook's yellow pirate's cap worn in the name of Roberto Clemente, his plane that flamed into the ocean loaded with cans for Nicaragua. For all the mouths chewing the ash of earthquakes, Alabanza. Praise the kitchen radio dial clicked even before the dial on the oven so that music and Spanish rose before bread. Praise the bread. Alabanza. Praise Manhattan from 107 flights up, like Atlantis glimpsed through the window of an ancient aquarium. Praise the great windows where immigrants from the kitchen could squint and almost see their world, hear the chant of nations, Ecuador, Mexico, República Dominicana, Haiti, Yemen, Ghana, Bangladesh. Alabanza. Praise the kitchen in the morning where the gas burned blue on every stove and exhaust fans fired their diminutive propellers, hands cracked eggs with quick thumbs or sliced open cartons to build an altar of cans. Alabanza. Praise the busboy's music, the chime of his dishes and silverware in the tub. Alabanza. Praise the dish dog, the dishwasher who worked that morning because another dishwasher could not stop coughing, or because he needed overtime to pile the sacks of rice and beans for a family floating away on some Caribbean island plagued by frogs. Alabanza. Praise the waitress who heard the radio in kitchen and sang to herself about a man gone. Alabanza. After the thunder, wilder than thunder, after the shudder deep in the glass of the great windows, after the radio stopped singing like a tree full of terrified frogs, after night burst the dam of day and flooded the kitchen, for a time the stoves glowed in darkness like the lighthouse in Fajardo, like a cook's soul. Soul, I say, even if the dead cannot tell us about the bristles of God's beard because God has no face. Soul, I say, to name the smoke beings flung in constellations across the night sky of this city and cities to come. Alabanza, I say, even if God has no face. Alabanza, when the war began from Manhattan and Kabul, two constellations of smoke rose and drifted to each other, mingling in icy air. And one said with an Afghan tongue, "Teach me to dance. We have no music here." And the other said with a Spanish tongue, "I will teach you. Music is all we have." Thank you. Alabanza means praise or worship in Spanish, and Martin Espada has long been a powerful voice for the marginalized, contributing significantly to Latinx literature. His work unites workers across cultural lines, as you can hear in this poem, highlighting the resilience and interconnectedness of communities. And in this elegiac poem, Espada was inspired by a BBC report on undocumented workers at the Windows on the World restaurant who disappeared after the 9/11, and their families were unable to claim benefits. And driven by a desire to make the invisible visible, Espada researched further, broadening the poem to honor other immigrant workers as well. I really love how what an impact poetry can create, and writers often make the invisible visible, becoming a voice for others. And tonight I am pleased to introduce a versatile artist and storyteller whose work embodies this in every form, whether as a playwright, a songwriter, or a poet. My featured artist tonight has a bio rich with experiences and accomplishments, and I'd like to share it with all of you. Roy Conboy is a mixed blood Latino, Irish, Indigenous writer and teacher whose poetic plays have been seen in the struggling black boxes on the edges of the mainstream theater in Los Angeles, Santa Ana, San Francisco, San Antonio, Denver, Minneapolis, and more, and whose musical plays for young people have toured extensively in California. His poetry has been seen in Green Hills Literary Lantern, Orphic Lute, Third Estate's Quarantine, Freshwater Literary Journal, New American Writing, and featured on the Latinx Lit magazine podcast. His poetic radio drama, You, can be heard online at Bearwire Theatre Company. His children's play, The Song of the Oak, El Canto del Roble, is anthologized in Aplauso, Hispanic Children's Theater, published by Piñata Books. As a playwright, Roy was in the first waves of the American Latino theater movement and was among the first to break into the consciousness of the movement of the mainstream theater. As an educator, he taught for 35 years, including 3 decades as the head of San Francisco State University playwriting program, where he created multiple programs that gave thousands of students of diverse ethnicities, genders, and backgrounds a place to find and raise their voices. Bienvenido, Roy. Qué bueno tenerte aquí.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Roy, if you can get us started with what you have to offer to us tonight.
Okay. I'll start with two poems. I think I'll start with two poems that are kind of related to the natural world and sort of our place in it and kind of our conflict with it as well. The first poem is entitled Redwood Memory. Redwood Memory. Return to the young groves that are ancient, where ancestors lie fallen and silent. My life is a spare set of their recording rings, each glorious nation and notion a hiccup in redwood memory. Their wooden days are dwindling, if days are counted in eons. The fog they bathe in has retreated. The inland seas where they once waded, drained by shifting geography. Before the hands wielding chainsaws, before the papers claiming property, they were a lawn of red and green, of whisper in the wind, of canopy in the clouds. Before the natives gleaning and praying, before the gigantic beasts sheltering in their sweep, they were a memory of continents drifting, of glaciers sojourning, of oceans restless and dreaming. But this morning, in fog and breeze, as branches sway and rub, they don't think of history, of riches or of misery, of conquering armies or violent religions, or of striving after things. This morning, in shroud and leaf, they sample again what's warm and what's wild, give shelter without rancor, revel in the beak that pierces, in the owl that sleeps and strives. This morning, in mist, they dream of stars that once made different pictures, of an age of snow that put them to sleep, of fires that cleansed them, of people that ravaged them. This morning, in mist, they dream. The sap that wends, the claws that climb, the earth that caresses their feet, the wind that sings eternity. Each morning in mist, they dream. Thank you. The second piece is entitled Native Soul. Native soul is buried beneath generations of forget. They're the drunks that sleep by the river, my uncle said. That's not us. But river sang in my bones, stronger than his bitter, stronger even than street. Song of the wrinkles on my abuela's face, the wrinkles in her dreams. At ending, she slept in mechanical bed, tangled in tubes, hair never gray, lips always moving, time past deluding. I touched her skin story when others fled, felt heat in the furrow, memory in facial ravine. Her eyes sparked, hand dragged me back. Who are you? She cried, voice cracking and shrieking. Where is the river, the night sky? Now in daylight, I suit up for tender, drive asphalt torrent, ride unending wireless, never resting from the getting. Who are you? She cries. The corporate entangle my secret desires with interface and link, like rats in the wall, mining what is mine, as if I were asleep. Where is the river, the night sky? But under stars, I run free, paced by crow above and wind below. Dream, riverbed, whispering. Who are you? she cries. Now in shadow, now silhouetted by stars, Abuela walks that shore again. Where is the river, the night sky? Her eyes spark and turn to me. Hand grips mine, drags back in time. Who are you? She cries. We sing power together on water, not shamed or drunk, not gray or forgetting. Rivers by the river running. Where is the river, the night sky? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for letting us stay with your poems and the way you deliver them. It's wonderfully crafted, the poem itself, but it's no surprise you coming from the theater. You really and as a musician as well, you really understand how to move with the lines and the words, and it's really fascinating to hear that in your voice and stay with the pieces. Thank you so much. We're really enjoying your reading, and I can see that in the chat as well. People have been mentioning that. You can uh, visit our chat and see that later. But coming to the opening piece that you offered, Redwood Memory, such a beautifully reflective piece. My life is a spare set of their recording rings, each glorious nation and notion a hiccup in Redwood Memory. Beautifully written there. The natural world so seamlessly connected in this piece. And my favorite line from Native Soul was Song of the wrinkles on my abuela's face, the wrinkles in her dreams. It's quite a layered piece as well, and I really like how both your opening poems explore themes of memory, a sort of ancestral connection and identity, while blending in imagery of the natural world to symbolize perhaps a return to a place that is tied to heritage. Which brings me to one of the things you said in an interview once, that in your journey as a writer, back when you started, almost everywhere you went, you were the first Latino to get there, uh, which I guess was the journey was a struggle, but also an opportunity for you to open up doors for people who came after you and from who belong to the community. So my question to you is, looking back, was there a moment in your early life where you felt the power of words and storytelling? And how did that memory guide you towards becoming a poet?
Well, I guess I guess a moment I would pick out was the when I learned to play guitar, and I learned I learned one of the first almost as soon as I was learning them, I was sitting down with friends and writing songs, and it occurred to me that I could actually have a voice that was more personally my own and more person where I could say things about myself and the people I loved, and that kind of I that sort of opened up a world that was a long time ago. That sort of opened up a world that I've been exploring ever since. And I think it's really was a matter of finding that there was a media that I could access, and I didn't have to I mean that the door that I could open the door myself and get in
Mm.
and just work it, and that really and then and following that too, that then I also like stumbled across poetry by Maya Angelou, and then a book, and then 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and those two
Right.
they just showed me that you could have your own voice and it could be unlike anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, that's amazing. Wonderful to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Roy. If you would like to take us further into your poetry and perhaps a song as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll do I'm going to do two pieces that are related to the to the nature of immigration, being part of an immigrant family. The first piece is a poem, and then I'll sing a little song that I wrote, which is basically was sort of about my grandfather, who immigrated to this country in the early part of the 20th century and led the rest of my family, the rest of my mother's family here. Here's the poem. It's called "They Lie in Wait." They lie in wait along the river. They sleep without shelter. They clamber across bridges. They thirst through the desert. Their children wrapped in swaddling clothes who find no manger. They're pilgrims seeking hope till they land in cages. Back home are cluster bombs, rival factions on every corner, sniper streets and poison gas, financed by politics and banks. Back home are drug trade, gang recruitment, and gang rape, disappeared and bloody corpses, courtesy of riches and affluent addictions. So they clamber into boats, forgetting comfort and warmth, brave their way through dark forest, begging morsel and border. So they caravan unwelcome, across river, desert, and state, bake on railroad, paddle shoal and bay, driven by coyotes take. Do they batter like the uniformed in the night? Do they swagger in like thieves in long limos? Do they scoff from high-rise office and window? Do their exploits impoverish tens of millions, or 100, or even one? They lie in wait along the river. They sleep without shelter. They clamber across bridges. They thirst through the desert. Their children wrapped in swaddling clothes who find no manger. They're pilgrims seeking hope till they land in cages. Thank you. Now, this is a song. The song is called "Border Canción." I wrote it for as I said, for my grandfather, who, and it's sort of a portrait of him and what I imagined his experience to have been. Needle and thread in his hands, blood and fire in his past. When he walked that bridge across the river, found no welcome, just suspicion. Found no bravery, just derision. When he walked that bridge across the river. Oh, promised land far from home. Oh, promised land all alone. Oh, promised land, so wealthy and so sad. This is your border canción. This is your border canción. Needle and thread in his hands, each night and day, made elegant. When he walked that bridge across the river, love 1,000 miles gone, memories of daughters and of sons. When he walked that bridge across the river, oh, promise the land far from home. Oh, promise the land all alone. Oh, promised land, so wealthy and so sad. This is your border concealed. This is your border concealed. Stranger, me up willow, dreaming of your home. Me yet to still remember La Tierra, hold your bone. Oh, promise the land far from home. Oh, promise the land all alone. Oh, promised land, so wealthy and so sad. This is your border concealed. This is your border concealed.
Woohoo! What a beautifully composed song there, Roy,
Thank you.
and beautifully sung as well. I
Thank
love
you.
that melody, and yeah, I can see hearts flying around the Zoom room. Thank you, Roy, for such a special offering. I really love how your poetry and songs come together. And to quote the final line from Martin Espada's poem, music is all we have, don't we? Another poet, Javier Zamora, once remarked that immigrant voices often lack agency is in newspaper articles, saying that the mic or pen is never given to an immigrant whose experiences it is. And I feel that something like poetry or songs can bring agency to these silenced voices. And just as poem making is, the process of writing and making music can also be a reflection of the space around us. Um, Patti Smith, a poet and songwriter, has said that poetry is a solitary process while songs are for the people. How much do you agree with that? I'd love to know how you think about this, and also, given your deep engagement with storytelling through plays, poems, as well as songs, as a songwriter and musician, my question to you is, how do you see the role of songs in fostering community and celebration? And do you find your approach changes when writing songs versus poems?
Well, I think that um, songs, I think that music involves people. We all respond to rhythm and lyric and tones, and we have um, all have individual responses to all of those things and how they're created. But I think, you know what, music when it's in public with I think music when it's in public, it tends to pull people together and
Mm.
even though we're all having different experiences, we're all sharing in the kind of in the music because it touches something else that's really deep and instinctual in all of us. You know, in theater we
True.
say that you the thing that happens in theater is there's a room full of people and people on stage pretend to be someone they're not, and all the people in the audience pretend that that's okay. And so there's just a whole lot of pretend, and that's a bond that you can't it's just a bond there's no other way to get at that bond. It's really unique in that way. And I feel like music is the same way. Matter of fact, uh I feel like my art as a playwright improved quite a bit when I started putting songs and poetry into my plays.
Mm.
And people told me I couldn't do that. Then I read Lorca, and but no, I think the difference is it's different to write songs and poetry. I think the thing I think about is that in order to write songs, you have to meld the music and the words together. And
Mm.
so those are two art forms, and you're trying to get them to work together. And you're trying to always in music as well as in poetry, you're always trying to get better at it. So it's really that what makes songwriting different is that challenge to make the words fit the music and the music fit the words, and that's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a challenge. And I think I had read somewhere, I don't quite remember who the artist was, but what they also meant was in a similar strain that just like an actor on the stage can tell that this line doesn't fit or it doesn't come naturally, you can say the same thing in a song versus a poem where the music has to go along with certain words and the certain words have to fit the movement and how one line follows the other, or when it is specially sung and put to music, it makes a huge difference. But do you feel that that approach influences the each other, like writing poems influences your songwriting process, or vice versa?
Yeah, I do. Well, I feel like I think of my poetry. I think it's all very song and rhythm and very lyric based. I feel like I feel like I do two things. I do a lot of narrative and I do a lot of and I do a lot of rhythmic things, and that's
Mm,
because that's the way I hear it.
right.
So yeah, I do think it informs just about everything that I do as a writer and as a poet. There's music in it that I hear in my head when I'm writing it and when I'm reading it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear in your poetry, I hear there's a lot of introspection, and in your songs, there is that emotional resonance which comes through. So it's just fascinating to see how you work with both the genres or different forms of writing. Thank you, Roy, for sharing those.
Sure.
Yeah, please continue and take us through your next poems as well.
Okay. Well, here I'm gonna do two more poems here, and these are from like a series of pieces that I've been creating, which are really based on my own familia and trying to um, well, just sort of telling stories about my own familia and our history and the personalities involved and that sort of thing. So here we go. The first is called Old Caddy. Old Caddy sits up on hubs in the driveway at Tio's casa. For sure, she's a project that'll never get done. The old one tinkers on her brakes and chrome, straw hat mornings, before heat takes hold. Remembrance of my Tio Alberto, humming in his passion for the sexy thrills and luxuries of the 72 DeVille. La Bamba blasting all suave and hip swing from AM radio, while fingers brown and thin rub polish deep into fenders and trim. She's muy guapo, no? Muy smooth, muy cold. You mean cool, Tio? Like riding with the angels. Ba 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 bam ba baby. Cruising heaven on four wheels. But after the sun, La Luna high in la noche, elm full of dancing leaves, he'd stroke the leather and refuse to cry on the whiskey-scented seats. Why do you love her so? I'd wonder at him. ¿Por qué, mijo? ¿Por qué? The drunk words came. For all the memories she does not contain. She's not the hiding of sisters from soldiers and mayhem, not the bodies piled high by Rio Chubiscar. There's no blood seeping into this car. She's not the carriage we pulled across the border, not the Model A that took Papa to his grave, not the beating in the alley where Barrio meets Maine. She's not soldier freezing in foxhole, not terror in the dark clutching the grenade, not the bloody dreams that never fade. Then drunk words turn to silence in polished night and glittering chrome. Whiskey, cough, curse, and drunken drive. Old soul sits up on hubs in the driveway down the blood. Old hands keep on shining till life gets done. Tio taps and tinkers on my songs and storms in the mornings before dreams get worn. Thank you. This next poem is entitled Tia Mary. Tia Mary was missing half a brazo. There was nada beneath the left elbow that led to a mano. But that didn't keep her from holding tight to a Budweiser at every familia fiesta and shouting, Bulla, my nickname, at the top of her lungs across the party. Even with only half an arm, she'd give big hugs and sloppy cheek vessels that smelled of beer and cigarettes and pan dulce. She didn't need that missing forearm to sit her sobrinos down in her cocina and fill us with tacos and burgers and crazy cuentos about our loca familia. She'd slap the table with her only hand and cackle while revealing, between sips of cereza, all the hidden history, all the forbidden chisme. You almost didn't happen. Your papa went to an office party and got drunker than a skunk. Someone stuck him in a taxi and sent him home without his pants. Your Tio Rafael hauled him up to the spare bed. In the morning, your mama shouted, I'll never marry you, at his hungover head. Ha! You almost didn't happen. Slap, slap, slap on the Formica mesa. My Tia Mary was missing half a brazo, but that didn't keep her from reaching out one cigarette smoky afternoon to my poetic quietude. I always wanted to be a painter, she confided. When I see you writing, I think, Ay, Tia, you could do it, I promised her. But she laughed. Sin felicidad, sin esperanza. You're young and dumb, mijo. Pero I'm just an old Mexicano mujer who didn't get to choose. My tia Mary was missing half a brazo. There was nothing beyond the left elbow that led to a mano. But was it there, in that nada, that she kept her secret sueños? There in that brazo that only she could see, where she went to dream, the pinturas and aventuras of one hidden woman and her soltera mano. Thank you.
An amazing piece there. Both your poems, Roy, and the one that you just shared in Spanglish. It's amazing. It comes together in so many ways and reminds me of Francisco Alarcón, who said that he began writing poems as a way to retrieve family memories. And lineage is a prominent theme in your poetry, whether it be familial or cultural or historical. And with your rich heritage as a mixed blood Latino, Irish, and Indigenous poet, in your experience, what role do you believe poetry plays in reclaiming cultural roots and preserving family stories?
Well, I think poetry to me is a great way of retelling the stories that have come my way in my family, either from sitting around in the kitchen listening to my tias, or sitting, at a party where my tios would tell me stories, and it's a great way of reinterpreting them in ways that have where I impart my own meaning into them, as well as passing along the things that they've told me. So, they're
Mm,
great imaginative journeys, um, and they're that are reworked for my by my own experiences in my own lifetime. But also,
mm,
it's also just a matter of like, I'm just positioned, when I think about who I am, and I have all these wonderful familia members who are my older generation, and all the things that I learned from them, and it's my chance to pass on things about them
mm.
that I hope that, not only, I mean, the younger members of my familia, but also other Latinos, or anyone who wants to hear about these, things that happened, or what the kind of things that we all have like lived through and endured, and things that we all share, that we share in our journeys, particularly like as immigrants, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely, I hear you, Roy. I see in the chat Teresa Conboy, she's mentioned that it brought back uh, our uncle and aunt for her. So I can see that how passing on these stories bring back something to you as well. And which brings me to my final question as well, before you offer one last piece to us in celebration of today. As a poet, playwright, and educator, you've worked very closely with students from diverse backgrounds and experiences. How important is it to you to pass on the stories of La Cultura y Comunidad to the next generation of Latinx writers, as well as those from other communities?
Well, I think, for one thing, it's what you mentioned before. I did spend a lot of my life kicking down doors, and being the first Latino to get there, and trying to open the door for not only other Latinos, but people of all ethnicities and genders. And one thing as a teacher, I think the thing I'm proudest of is a program I created where we actually, um, where we every year we did a bunch of plays, short plays that were written by students of mine, and in that yearly festival, we had all kinds of things that were never saw the light of stage. We
Mm,
characters drawn from my own students' backgrounds, and they got a chance to tell their stories, and that was a multi-ethnic, multi-gendered, people, all kinds of different stories that
right.
and that's kind of probably my proudest achievement as a teacher, just the idea that we created a space where people could raise their voices that wasn't there for them before and wasn't there for me when I was their age. So I think that's that I just think that's the whole reason I do it. I mean, the idea to retell that to retell and to tell new stories. And I mean, that's the whole reason why people write poetry or sing songs to begin with. And that's, really just the idea of getting across who you are and what you have to offer to the world. And the more diverse that can be, the better off we all are.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Roy. And although you are a professor emeritus, you continue to be a playwright and a poet and a musician and so many other things. So it's amazing that you continue to inspire those whom are reached out by your work. So we are really grateful for that. But I would love to hear that celebratory piece about food, about the kitchen, if you have that for us.
Okay.
I really love that piece.
Okay. Oh yeah. So this is this is a one more piece. It's called um Hands That Spread the Masa. Hands that spread the masa turn out the light to caress the chest and thigh. Hands that spoon the red salsa and taste its savor and sabor, with nose, tongue, and finger, slide through the wiry jungle in the dark triangle and fondle the secrets there. Hands that string the chile and set it out to dry in the sun, absorb hot oil into the skin. Spice of the plant sets the neck to sweating, as it will again when fingers bring seed and soil together in the dark bed. After steaming, when masa is firm, hands strip away corn hojas that cling like a party dress. Senses sharpen at fire of aroma, memories of celebration and distress. Hands taste passion, tremble, and grow moist again. Chile and Luna de Roja wrestle in the old bed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roy, for taking the time to share with us tonight. Your dedication to telling the stories of family, community, and Latino heritage is both inspiring and deeply moving, and how effortlessly you express in all forms of writing, poetry, plays, and songs. And it's a beautiful gift, I feel, to move fluidly between these forms as each brings its own unique way of storytelling. It was really a treat to hear you tonight. Muchas gracias.
De
I'd like
nada.
to I'd like to open the floor briefly for comments from our audience before we move to the next segment. If everyone you'd like to take a moment to unmute yourself and share a word with Roy, please do so, and keep an eye out for a link to Roy's poetry blog that I'll be putting in the chat.
Roy, that was absolutely stellar. This is my first time hearing you. Wow. Very deep, very, you've heard all these things before, but I'm just saying, wow, thank you so very much. Beautiful, beautiful work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to say thank you as well. Also, my first time. And I'm just so stunned. I don't know quite how to put it into words. It was just so, I think, personal and evocative and so relatable. I don't have tios and and abuelos, but I do have aunts and grandmothers and and grandfathers. So it's relatable no matter which culture you're from. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks very much.
Very beautiful poetry. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, thank you so much, Roy. It did exactly as Phil said. It felt like taking me back home, listening to your pieces. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I will agree with everything that everyone has said, Roy, and this is my first time being exposed to your talent. And I found a profound humility throughout your reading tonight. Humility in the best sense of the word. And somebody else mentioned relatable, very relatable no matter what our backgrounds are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Emily, please go ahead if you'd like to say something.
I just want to say was one of the fortunate students that Roy had at the university, and he impacted my life significantly. And Roy, I'm such a huge fan, as you know, and your work has grown and it continues to move me in such a profound way. I was moved to tears by your first piece and like continued to be moved by it. So it was really a treat to hear you today. And I'm really glad that other people are getting to hear you and know you, because it's a real treat. Love you, man.
Love you too, Emily. Thanks.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to hear what all of you have to say always to our featured artists. And once again, Roy, it was a real pleasure to host you, and I hope you had a wonderful time as well.
I did. It's been a real honor too. Thanks.
The honor is mine as well, Roy. And all right, with that, I guess we are going to stop recording this segment. Those of you who are in the Zoom room, please stay online for the open mic segment of the evening. To the YouTube audience, thanks for tuning in and hope to see you for next month's virtual Belmont Poetry Night. Good night.